So AP Computer Science lecture number 2. Our learning goals today is what is the benefit about using Java? Why do people use Java? Why is it cool? What's useful about it? Oh, the spacing here is off. Ugh. Okay, anyway. Um, and and then how do you start a Java app? Every Java app has the same starting point. We're going to look at that. So why is Java cool, and how do you start a Java app? We're going to look at that. So Java is portable. So if any of you if you ever download and install a game on Steam, and you're trying to run it, the first time you run, it'll say running first time setup. The first time you run a game in Steam, it takes a long time to set it up because it's running in a version of C. At almost all games run in C because it runs very quickly on your computer and not Java. And that's the difference here, and that's what we're going to talk about. And so when you first run a game, it has to change all of the code so that it knows how to run on your hardware. It changes everything so it fits to your personal computer. Java doesn't care what your computer is. Java has a virtual machine that's running on top of your computer. So it runs a computer simulation inside of your computer. So it's a fake computer running inside your computer. And so the fake computer is adjusting to your machine in particular. But the JVM, the virtual machine, is interpreting that. So that's why no major games, you can't run Overwatch in Java, because the JVM is a fake computer and it's not using all of your system's resources. Let's talk a little bit. Let's slow down. There's 4 J acronyms that we have to learn: JDK, JRE, JVM, and JIT. So JIT is all programming languages have some form of JIT. And JIT is the interpreter. So if I told you, everyone please stand up, everyone please sit down, you would be interpreting that command that I just told you. That's your JIT. You have an English JIT. That's you interpreting language into action. So JIT. Now, when you install a game in Steam, the JIT runs one time, and then it's set up, it's installed on your computer. It doesn't run again. It has been interpreted once. Java doesn't do that. Java runs the JIT every time because it's built into the JVM. So the JVM is the Java virtual machine. So the real answer is, how does Java's JIT differ from Dennis Ritchie's JIT that he built in C? So let me give a quick shout out to Dennis Ritchie. My boy Dennis Ritchie is one of the smartest people ever. He invented the language C. He also invented Unix and a bunch of other really amazing things. This one guy, one dude, pretty much invented how computers work now. Yeah, he had help. His partner, Ken Thompson, and lots of other people have worked on stuff. But there are a few people in computer science that have just figured out some crazy stuff. Tim Berners-Lee figured out, how to make a website. And so one guy made HTML. Pretty cool stuff. And then one guy made C. It's more complicated than that, but really, hats off to some of these big brainiacs. Cool. So if you ever want to learn more about him, but you should know the name Dennis Ritchie. And even if you forget what he's for, you should still know Dennis Ritchie. Kind of a big deal. Bill Gates made BASIC. Kind of a big deal. So important to know about these things. Okay, so the JIT is something that every language needs. Java is cool because it runs inside of a JVM. So that way, you don't have to ever adjust your code. If you write a Java app, it will run on every computer pretty much ever. So pretty nice. That's the Java runtime environment. That's when I run code in Java, it runs the JRE. So if you want to run a Java app on your computer, you need the JRE. But if you want to program a Java app, you need the development kit, the JDK. A development kit is just the tools like Eclipse or NetBeans or any other editor. You'll need a JDK in order to edit and program in Java. So the JDK allows us to build code that will run in the JRE. And the JRE is cool because it runs this JVM, so that way it'll work on any machine ever. So Mac, PC, an old cell phone that's 10 years old, a thermostat that runs on your wall. Java just runs all sorts of basic machines because of how portable it is. Okay? So that's why Java is cool. But it's also why Java is slow, because that JVM it does a real-time JIT all the time, rather than one-time big setup and then it runs fast, like C does. C does a one-time JIT, and then it's just ready to go real fast. Okay, cool. Lots of more. Java was invented in the 90s. You should read about it if you want to learn more about who made Java. Dennis Ritchie didn't do Java. He did C. If you want to learn more about the guys that made Java, then hit that link. But in the meanwhile, let's talk about Java's main method. All right, so that's a little bit about why Java is cool. We'll go back into that later as we review it. But right now, Java, every line of Java starts with this public static void main. It's your main method. And what all is happening in here is the subject of our conversation. But first, I'm going to pause this video and ask to see if any of you have any questions. Okay, so we reviewed a little bit about the JDK. We had some good questions about JVM, some cool thoughts about Minecraft running on Java, so check that out. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the vocab here. So this is going to take us some time. I'm going to introduce these terms to you. You're not going to totally get them all at the first pass, but we'll keep going through them. So 3 different terms here. When I look at this, I have public static void and then the name main method. So the name main, that's just something that we chose when they created Java. So it'll look for that string, that word main. But this stuff that's before, let's talk a little bit about why this is needed. So public talks about your scope, that this is available, that this method main is available to someone calling from outside the class. So this is the class, this is the file name, hello world. So this is the class, and because this is public, you can activate this method from outside this file. That's critical because you need to start the app from somewhere else. You need to launch the app, and so it has to be public. Instantiation is whether it's an instance or static. So imagine it like this. So as described here, if you're playing a video game and you've got like 20 players in your game, and programmers don't need to program out 20 different players. You make one player class. They all have certain abilities like health and what have you. And whenever a new player joins, a new instance or a new example of that player is created. So, like Jack, you're an instance of the human class. So you're an example of that class. But if you had a file that did a bunch of helper things, like randomly calculated, randomly drew a number. So let's say you were rolling the dice in this game. You don't need that to be instantiated. You don't need a separate helper class for each player. You could just have one helper thing, and you could say, hey, do this operation for me and give me back. So that it can run off of that master copy. And so that's static. It's a master copy. It's not being a separate copy of it isn't being booted up for each player that joins. So that's why it says static, because it's just one thing. It only runs from this one master copy. It doesn't get replicated into instances. And we're gonna learn a lot about that in heap memory and how that works. So we'll get back to that. And then the last one is the return type. This says void return type because it won't return anything once it's done. Once you hit the end of this code, it just shuts down. And that's because the main when you call the main method, that's the start of the app. There's nothing for it to return to. Other methods, like this one here, can return a number. After it calculates what your max number is, it'll return the result. So that can be helpful to hand back a value. Once I call a method, you'll return something to me. So, like Angela, what's 5 plus 5? 10. Oh, she's so good. Yeah, so that's exactly right. And that was the return value she gave to me. So I called the instance Angela. I said Angela dot add parentheses, and then I gave her two numbers, 5 and 5, and then she returned the result of that, which was 10. And so return type. Cool. So now what we're going to do is we are going to create our first Hello World app. We're going to try using, well, we may use NetBeans, but I'm going to try to see if we can get Eclipse working. So at home, go ahead and get that started. If you don't know how to get that started, go to sololearn.com and just start working here, and that'll get you caught up for now. And then you can work with me about getting your own JDK set up. Until then, you can just use a web-based one. But getting a real JDK is pretty nice.